So tonight's workshop is going to be focused on the value prop. So that was kind of the middle bucket of the business model canvas that we went through before. So specifically what we'll cover tonight is your customers' jobs, which are things that they're trying to accomplish, and then your value proposition to them. And we'll show a few value prop canvas examples, and then at the end, you'll have some time to kind of work in class on your own value prop canvas, and then we'll go through as many examples as we can, just so you can get kind of direct feedback on your value prop. So first I'm going to do a little poll here about tell us if you've done any customer interviews, and if yes, how many you've done so far. I'll give you a minute or so to do that. All right. All right. Some people have done over 50 already. That's awesome. I think everybody except for our team has answered the poll now. So it looks like a good number of you have done several interviews. So does anybody want to unmute themselves or share in the chat anything that you've learned from your customer interviews, any insights or anything interesting that came up? Have you pivoted because of things that you've heard from your customers? Just anything you want to share?
Emily, I can go if you want me to.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I did some regular customer interviews as well, like actually talking to people and getting real world feedback, but also way before did a lot of, it wasn't really interviews, but building a landing page for the product we had
Mhm.
or have, and just seeing if people were interested based on only the landing page. So no real like convincing there. It's just to see if they get interested about it or not. But during the interviews, I kind of noticed that there was this pattern I would go through, this like feedback loop by like talking to potential customers and potential users, seeing what they're saying, evaluating that compared to what we already have, and kind of taking the feedback that I get from all of our interviews and then seeing which ones are popping up most frequently and then making changes and then going through the feedback loop again by asking users and doing the same thing all over again until we get to a point to where it's like, okay, we have a good foundation of a product that we have we have a competitive edge here that we can take advantage of and really build a useful product for our users. So I kind of just noticed that feedback loop.
Awesome. Can you remind me again what the idea is that you're working on?
Yeah, so it's a social media app for college students. It allows college students to um, make friends in their area by swiping on friend groups. So you can either join the app by yourself and swipe and join a friend group that's in the area, or you can create a group with your existing friends and then swipe left and right on other friend groups in the area. Just makes it easier and less awkward to meet people instead of one-on-one.
Hmm, that's cool. So what was some of the kind of specific feedback that you got from customers, like in that feedback loop that you experienced?
Yeah, so a lot of it was like user experience in terms of the UI. So like some design things, and I guess one of them specifically would be instead of only showing just the user's profile images. So what we originally had was it was displaying the profile images of each user, and you can click on each profile image. Instead of only displaying that, allow users to make like a group profile
Mm.
that allows users to show um, the group as a whole and what kind of vibe the group has as a whole instead of each individual user individually. So
Cool. Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else want to share anything? You can type it in the chat if you don't want to say it out loud. So Cole, how many interviews have you done, like at this point, would you say?
I put over 50 for my answer in the poll, but for me to really count, I mean, I can't really keep track of it, but it's been over 100 at this point. But I did it. I started doing interviews way before BMC, so I kind of had a lot of time to talk to a lot of people and get a lot of feedback. But I would say over 100.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.
Well, did you find doing the customer interviews difficult when you started?
Um. No, because I realized going through the process of building a product like this, I realized that the more and more I was involved in building the product and seeing how much the world would change with it and how much the world would be worse off without it, I'd realized that it wasn't hard to do the customer interviews. It was like something I had to do. It was a requirement. I had to do it for this to be successful. If I didn't do it, it's not going to be successful. And if I don't talk to potential users and get their feedback, you might build something that's not useful to them, and then you just have to go through that feedback loop again. So I didn't find it necessarily difficult, but it was time consuming. So.
Awesome. So does anybody have any questions about any of the topics that we've covered so far, or have any questions come up after the last workshop where Glimpse spoke? Anything about their story that stuck out to you that you kind of had some follow-up questions about or anything? Nope. All right. If you have any questions moving forward, feel free to just type them in the chat at any point if it kind of comes up to you later. So I did want to let you know that if you do have any questions that you think about in between, especially we're going to have a pretty long break in between this workshop and our next one in January. So we have set up office hours. I set them up for Monday, Thursday, and Friday afternoons. There are a few that I won't be available, but you can come talk to me and Murillo and about any kind of issues that you're having. If you have questions about your idea, you want some more feedback besides what we've given on canvases, or if you're stuck in the customer interview process where you can't get people to have a meeting with you, or you don't know who to contact, any kind of questions that you have, or if you just want to talk through any kind of issues, feel free to set up a slot with us by going to that link. Lola, if you could type that in the chat so people can just click on it. I'll be available throughout the 2 months in between now and our next workshop, and then kind of moving forward, it'll be a similar schedule anytime you have questions and just want to pop into a Zoom with me. I'll let Lola get that to type before I move on. I think maybe I can.
Hold on, that's link's not right, but I'll retype it and you can move on.
All right, so far we've covered defining your customer segments and how to talk to those customers to gain insight into the problems that they're facing. And now you need to design a solution that's going to solve those problems that they have. So many of you have already done this, but being able to state your value proposition in a way that kind of makes sense when you're giving a pitch is what we're going to go through with some examples tonight. So the value proposition, it is the benefit that is provided to your customer through your solution. So it should answer the question, why should customers do business with you? And that means not only what you can do for them to solve their problems, but also how you can do it in a better way than existing solutions or your competitors. So value can be either qualitative, like price or speed, or quantitative, more like design or the customer experience, where it's not related to a number necessarily. So there are different types of value, including newness, which is being, brand new, offering of its kind, nothing like it currently exists on the market. Or performance, so more storage, faster speeds, increased accuracy, something like that. Customizable is something that's becoming a bigger deal to consumers. So that's tailoring your product or service to individual customer needs. So one example I know that's in this group is a hair care product that is tailored to specific hair types. So that would be something that the value would be being customizable. It could be something that gets the job done. So it takes care of a particular task or an activity entirely, so that that company, that customer's efforts and time can be spent elsewhere, focused on other things. Better design is another value. So better usability or convenience. So convenience is something like all Apple products syncing together. So you have a MacBook, you have an iPad, an iPod, iPhone, and when you get a new one of those products, it just automatically syncs with all of the other Apple products that you have, and you pretty much just power it up and go. So that's one thing that Apple has that's a value they deliver to customers. And finally, another value is reducing costs or risks. So if you can save a customer money or risk, if you're making something safer, then you're reducing risks. Any questions about any of the different kinds of value, or maybe how it relates to what you're doing specifically? All right. So there's different kinds of jobs that a customer needs to get done. So you need to be asking yourself with your solution, which job are we helping our customers get done? So jobs are important issues that your customer's trying to solve in their work or personal lives. So it could be tasks they're trying to perform or complete, problems they're trying to solve, or a need that they're trying to satisfy. So there's three kind of core types of jobs. Functional jobs are tasks to be completed or a specific problem to solve. So you have this specific task you need to get done. Maybe it's for work, or maybe it's you need to eat or something like that. Those are things that need to be solved with some sort of solution. Social jobs deal with how a customer wants to be perceived by others. So trying to look good or gain status by using a particular solution, those are social jobs. And then when your customer is seeking a specific feeling, like safety, feeling entertained, something like that, feeling relaxed, that's an emotional job. So can anybody think of an example of a functional, social, or emotional job that a certain group of customers is trying to complete, and then a product or service that then helps them complete that job? It can be anything at all. Feel free to shout it out. I will call on somebody if nobody says anything.
I guess like Uber helps people get from point A to point B.
So what kind of job is that? Is that functional, social, or emotional?
Say functional.
Yep. Anybody else have an example?
I have an example, but maybe a question as to maybe it could pertain to two things. But Apple's products, it can get a functional job done, but can it also potentially get an emotional job done?
Yep, I would say so, because social having an Apple product, that's perceived a certain way, having, status and whatnot, but it also, completes a functional job of making phone calls or, working on the computer. So yeah, that's totally correct. Yep, Nancy, eHarmony is a good example of the emotional social. I would also say it's kind of functional. Like if your job that you're trying to complete is finding a date, maybe that's more emotional, but it depends on how you think about obtaining a date, I guess. So just a few other examples. Those were really great examples. So one for functional is something like QuickBooks. So business owners have this task they need to complete of doing bookkeeping, but a lot of times they want to spend most of their time actually doing things for the business and not really on the bookkeeping. So QuickBooks is an accounting software that helps complete that functional job that the customer needs to do. And then for social jobs, think of something like a luxury car company like BMW, Rolls-Royce, something like that, that gives customers a certain image or social status just by driving that car around. Like, I don't know much about cars. I don't know how much better in, performance those kinds of cars are, but they definitely give off a certain image. And a lot of people that buy those kinds of cars, they buy it more for the image than the actual performance of the vehicle. And then for emotional, so to help a certain group of customers feel more secure by defending against theft or just being able to watch over their house, companies like Simply Safe or ADT that have security systems, they're really kind of playing into that emotional job that a customer has of wanting to feel safe. So does anybody have any questions about the different kinds of jobs and maybe what you're working on, what kind of job you're trying to help your customers complete? All right, so this is the value proposition canvas. So we have our business model canvas, and in the middle of that is the value proposition, and it has its own canvas here to help you figure out what exactly the value is that you're giving to a specific customer segment. So each customer segment, like if you're Uber and you have drivers and riders, then you would have two different value proposition canvases in order to illustrate the value that you provide to each of those, because they're actually different. So the value prop canvas actually goes from right to left. So you start with the big circle and move over to the box. So we've talked about the kinds of customer jobs that exist and whether they're functional, social, emotional. There's also supporting jobs like ancillary tasks that need completed, but they're not core jobs that your customer's trying to complete. So pains are the next thing, and those are things that annoy customers before, during, or after getting that job done. So these annoyances can be undesired costs or situations, negative emotions that they experience while completing that job, or unnecessary risks that they're taking when completing those jobs. So it could be that solutions that they've tried before haven't worked at all, or that they feel or look bad when they're using their current solution. So a good question to ask to get to the pains that your customer is experiencing is what keeps your customer up at night when they're thinking about work and what's making it difficult to do their job, or something in their personal life, what's getting in the way of them accomplishing that task or doing it as fast as they want, as inexpensive as they want, that sort of thing. And then gains up at the top of the circle those describe the outcomes and benefits that your customers require, expect, desire, or would be surprised by from a solution. So like an iPhone, for example, you expect that you'll be able to make a call with it. you require that you be able to make a call with it because it's its main purpose as a phone. And then, you might expect it to not drop calls. And then you might desire for it to have, all these apps that you want to use on it. Or you might be surprised by the things that it does, like tracking your health and your sleep and stuff like that. So then we move over to the box on the left, which this is all about your solution. So the products and services, this is the bundle of products and services that you offer, which then relieves the pains that your customers have when performing their jobs and also helps create these gains. So then the pain reliever section should outline how your product is relieving the pains that you described in the customer profile. So if you fill this out and you list a bunch of pain relievers that don't directly tie to the pain you said that your customer is having, then you know that there's a problem there. And then gain creators outline how you expect to create benefits that your customer either requires, expects, desires, or would be surprised by. So that might be social gains, positive emotions, cost savings, better functionality, something like that. Any questions about the parts of a business value proposition canvas before we move on to an example?
A question.
Yeah.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So a question I had was, say for example, your company or whatever you're working on has like multiple customer types. Say for example, if you're maybe like for Uber in general, like would you have a value proposition canvas for both the riders and the drivers?
Yep, and we're actually going to go through Uber's, both of their value prop canvases to show how they're different from each other. So yeah, if you have 2 customer segments, you want to have 2 value prop canvases. If you have 3, you want to have 3. Like there's going to be something at least slightly different in all of them. So definitely. Any other questions? All right. So just to go through an example, I'm excited about this. My Peloton is my favorite thing in the world. So if you don't know what a Peloton is, raise your hand if you're unfamiliar with what a Peloton bike is. I feel like their commercials are everywhere, but if you don't know, I will explain. Oh. Well, just to give you a little bit more information, they make exercise bikes, treadmills, like rowing machines, all kinds of equipment that you can have in your own home that connect to an on-demand fitness app. And it provides either recorded or live classes with fitness instructors around the world. So you might do a spin class that's actually in a spin studio, or you're doing a bike ride that's, on a mountain or a beach somewhere. And the instructors also have the ability to control the resistance of your bike or whatever you're using and the incline of that. So it gives you the experience of actually being in a spin class or riding a real bike outside, even though you're in your home. So our customer segment for this Canvas example specifically is females, kind of millennial females, age 30 to 45-ish, that are interested in fitness, and they're also either busy working professionals or they're stay-at-home moms. So hopefully you guys can see that. So the specific value prop for this customer segment I just described is that the Peloton bike allows you to work from the comfort and privacy of your own home for less than the cost of a gym membership. So just kind of starting right to left, the customer jobs that a person like me is trying to complete by using a solution like this is that I want to try to get or stay fit and also to be healthier. So those are kind of functional and emotional, I guess, jobs that someone like me is trying to complete when looking for something like this. So the pains that this customer experiences that, when they're either at home or they're busy in their professional lives, they have a hard time finding spin classes at gyms that work for them. So they're either in the middle of the day or super early in the morning. And it just doesn't work with the schedule either of working or being at home with the kids. It also takes too much time to actually drive to the gym. It's not just the time that you spend in the gym doing your bike ride, it's the time that it takes you to get there and then get back home, get back to work, wherever you're going. Another pain is that people feel uncomfortable exercising in public, either if they're new to the fitness world or they just, I don't want to say they're antisocial people, but if you're working all day, sometimes you just don't want to be around people anymore when you're working out. It also can be really hard to get motivated to go to the gym, or you feel guilty taking time to go to the gym instead of doing, things with your family or for work that you should be doing instead. And then also gym memberships are really costly. So if you're interested in doing something like a spin class, sometimes you have to pay for a gym membership and then also pay for, group fitness classes like spin classes. So it can get pretty pricey, but what you're expecting to get out of exercising, out of using gym equipment like this, is to have increased health, increased fitness, and more confidence in yourself. So then the Peloton solution is equipment that fits in your home that also has this app that allows you to get on-demand classes and instructors to do your workouts. So what makes this a pain reliever is that then you can fit your workout in easily in between your meetings or tasks with the kids that you're working on. So you're not having to take the time to get in your car and drive to the gym, do your workout, and then drive back. And you didn't have time to shower or anything. So it kind of reduces your commute to zero to work out. So for me, for instance, I will sometimes work out on my lunch, and my commute to my bike is like 3 steps from where I'm working. So I can quickly do that and then sit right back down for my next meeting less than an hour later. And you can kind of tailor it to the amount of time that you have. So you can pick a workout that's 20 minutes if you only have 20 minutes, or you can pick a 60-minute workout. So it kind of relieves that pain of not having class times that work, and also the driving to and from the gym. And it's also private because it's in your home, so you don't feel uncomfortable exercising in public, which might make it easier to get motivated to go to the gym. I know that I have my bike sitting in my dining room, so I walk by it multiple times, and it's a lot easier to psych myself up to take those 3 steps to get on my bike than to get in my car and drive to the gym and go to a spin class. And then also, it ends up costing less per month than the average gym membership. So you actually save money at the same time that you're having all of these other pains relieved. And then for the game creators, so these are kinds of things that you might not have expected to get, but you could have desired. So like access to a large bank of highly sought after instructors. So that's something that you would desire to have, but wouldn't normally be able to get. Like you would just be, constricted to the instructors that are in your regional area if you were going in person to a gym. But with this kind of on-demand access to instructors all over the world and all these different kinds of workouts, that's something that you would desire to have but wouldn't necessarily be able to have without something like Peloton. And so something else for me and other people that I know is something that was unexpected is that it actually makes working out really fun and it's entertaining. It's almost like a video game of, you're riding against other people. There's a leadership board, so you can compete with other riders, but you also can track your progress. So you know how many miles you've done that week, how long it took you, and you can track against your own self. If you do the same ride multiple times, you can see, oh, I did this much faster. I put this many watts into it compared to last time. So there's lots of gains created by it that aren't necessarily what you might expect from something like this. So does anybody have any questions about this value prop canvas for Peloton? That makes complete sense to everybody? All right, so we're gonna go through an example, 2 examples together, and then you'll work on your own value prop canvas for your products. So here we're going to do Uber. So think about Uber's customer segments. They have 2 of them. They have the riders that use the app to book a ride to go somewhere, and then they have the drivers. So first we're going to walk through this value prop canvas together for the riders. So either say out loud or type into the chat, and Lola will annotate using the whiteboard feature. Lola, if you go up to like your menu things, you should be able to click annotate and start typing. Let me know if it doesn't work. But let's start with the customer jobs that Uber riders have. Anybody want to shout anything out? To travel, okay. Lola, are you able to type that in?
Can you see that or no?
Okay,
I can see
yes,
that.
I can now.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so what are some pains that they experience in the process trying to get from point A to point B? All right, so they may not have a car.
They don't want to waste time finding taxis.
Takes a long time to get a taxi, yeah. Anything else? I feel like they probably have a few more pains than that. Cole, can you think of any other pains that people might have, the riders?
Yeah, taxis might be expensive, more expensive than it is to take an Uber based on supply. Um,
So taxis can be expensive.
yeah. I'm not sure. Besides the price and efficiency of an Uber driver, I'm not sure. Besides those 2.
So what about other ways that they can get from point A to point B? So like if they're walking, for example, like what's a pain that they might experience if they decide to walk instead of taking a taxi because it's too expensive?
Duration takes too long.
Also, I think compared to like public transport, Uber, it's just like one person, and then you don't have to interact with a lot of people. That'd be
Okay, so public transportation has too many people on it. That's something, especially in the world of COVID, that I'd rather take an Uber than be on a bus for sure.
Hey, in places where the emergency services doesn't really work, where there's few ambulances, and these are third world developing countries, there is enough cars that, you know, you need to dash over to a house, you've broken your hand, you can do an Uber and it'll take you there. Whereas if you were to wait for an ambulance, you'd wait 3 days for one to show up.
Right. That's a good point. Yep. And I saw another one in the chat of if you're going to be maybe going to a bar and drinking or something, you don't want to drink and drive your own car, even if you have your own car. All right, so we've got a good amount of pains. What about gains? When they're trying to complete that job of traveling to point A to point B, what do they require or desire, expect out of something that's going to help them complete that job? I feel like sometimes gains are the harder ones to figure out. Okay, so they expect convenience. Anything else?
They require good service from the driver.
I would say a requirement is that they actually get to the place that they're going, that they're not going to be like dropped off halfway there too. Sometimes if you're walking, you may not make it to where you're going, so.
You can also track where where your driver is.
Yeah, so tracking. All right, so think about the products and services that Uber provides. So let's list those out. So there's kind of mainly two, I would think. So what's the service that they're providing? Yeah, so rides. And then how do you acquire the ride?
The driver.
So what do you like use to find the driver?
Well, a mobile application or your phone.
Yep. All right, so how do those products and services then relieve the pains that we listed over on the right side? How about Steven? We haven't heard from you tonight. Do you have any thoughts on the pain relievers?
Hmm.
So if you look at the pains on the right side, what is Uber's products and services doing for the riders to, you know, make those pains better or get rid of them entirely?
Hmm. I guess if they want to go to like a specific place, they could use Uber.
Okay, so which one of those panes on the right side is that connected to?
Well, Yeah, like it's like not having a car, but I guess like um let's say you're like your car like breaks down or something. I don't know. Like some scenario where an emergency or something, like Uber could help. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else have any thoughts? Okay, I see in the chat.
I was
More
gonna,
efficient. Oh.
Emily, I was gonna check. Do taxis still take cash? So you're in New York, you jump into a yellow cab, or okay, let's private. But is it still cash? Because if it's still cash, then Uber is very convenient. You don't need cash. You don't need to. It's a payment over an app. You're not giving away your card to an anonymous person that you don't know, a driver that, it's just convenient. I don't know what you guys think about that.
I would say that's probably more of a gain creator than a pain reliever because we said, like the gains that you expect are
Right.
like convenience. So I would consider that to be convenience, unless the pain, we didn't list this as a pain, but a pain might be, with a taxi, if they're one that only accepts cash, which some of them do accept credit cards, but I don't know how many of them you can pay on the app. So that could be a pain reliever if one of the pains we listed was, it's hard to pay for a taxi, whereas using Uber and you pay through the app, that makes it a lot easier. So that would relieve that pain.
Well, certainly in Africa, look, it's, there's lots of cards and there's more mobile cash, and Uber is there. You're able to use that. But when it comes to using cash, then the risks associated and having to carry large amounts of cash and having to pay, it's just something that people are not happy with. But I think Uber makes it very convenient.
Right.
It's a reliever. You give you an example in Zimbabwe, just to queue on for cash at a bank, you have to wake up and be at a queue 5 a.m. and you only get $20, right? And then you still have to use that cash to pay for your transport. So
Right.
imagine if you're using a card, it becomes very convenient.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So looking at the pains that we listed here, so like taxis take too long to find. What is something that Uber does that relieves that pain? What is it about using Uber that would relieve the pain of a taxi taking too long to find? How does the app help with that pain?
They choose drivers based on location. So they have a location-based algorithm and supply and demand-based algorithm.
Right. And you can see on the app like where that driver is specifically when it comes up.
Right, exactly. Information. Yep.
Yep. So how about it takes too long or it's more effort to walk? So what about Uber relieves that pain?
Lets you take a ride in a car.
Yep. You have kind of your personal driver
One person.
to take you somewhere instead of having to walk. And so when you have that personal driver, then that also kind of relieves the pain of having too many people on public transport. You're either by yourself or with like maybe one other person if you're doing a shared ride. All right, so what about game creators? So one that we kind of mentioned, like Dave said, the convenience of being able to pay using an app instead of either having to use a card or paying cash to a taxi driver. So what are some other gain creators for Uber on the rider side? I would say that the point in the chat about being able to tell you estimated time for your driver arrival so you can plan accordingly. It's kind of a gain of, with a taxi, you kind of you can't plan an exact time of arrival like you can with an Uber.
this might be more due to their scale, but you kind of always know you're able to get a ride. Whereas I feel like, I mean, I don't know if like West Lafayette had a taxi service before Uber.
Yeah, like there's kind of a limited number of taxis where Uber, anybody who has a car can be a driver. You don't have to be certified as a taxi driver. In a taxi, you have your own car. So the supply of drivers is larger.
Emily, another one I just thought of was that an Uber driver will wait for you for a few minutes if you're late.
Yeah, a taxi
But
won't.
taxi
Or a
may
bus.
not, and a bus definitely will not.
Right. All right, just so we have time to get through the next one, let's go on to the driver's side now. So you're gonna have to clear. Is there a way to clear what you've? Okay. All right. So what's the job that the driver customer segment for Uber is trying to do?
Make money.
Yep. I would say that's the main job they're trying to complete there. So what are some pains that they experience, maybe with other ways that they've tried to make money? Not Uber related.
I think they choose their time of work. It's convenient to a driver that way.
Yep. So if they weren't using Uber and they were just getting some other kind of part-time job, they wouldn't be able to choose their hours like they can with Uber. So a pain would be not being able to choose your own work hours. Or some other pains that the people just trying to make money are having.
It's finding like work, I guess.
Yep. Especially if they're trying to do some kind of side hustle, because a lot, like in bigger cities, I would say that Uber drivers tend to be like that's kind of their full-time gig, but in smaller towns, it's really people trying to have a side hustle. So trying to find like a part-time job that's just the right amount of hours and that they qualify for and everything, like that can be a hassle. Right, maybe one more pain that they're experiencing.
So like pains they would experience if they wanted to be a taxi driver, would that go in a different section?
So they want to be a taxi driver, but like they can't for some reason.
Well, like I guess I would like with Uber, they have access to customers that they wouldn't otherwise.
Mm.
So,
so maybe like they want to be a driver, but for some reason, like the taxi company isn't hiring or they don't have a way to get into an existing
I see.
gig. Yeah.
I didn't think about it that way. I don't know if like that would be an issue if they wanted to be a taxi driver, but they could like with an actual company.
Right.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about the cab rank rule. They get to avoid that rule. And what it is it's first in and first out. So you wait for all the drivers ahead of you to pick up passengers first at a given location where you are supposed to operate from. But with Uber, they don't have to do that. They just log in and they roam around and just get customers on the go. Whereas the cab rank rule, I think it can be frustrating to a driver. Get there at the airport and there's 100 other drivers ahead of you, and that's wasted time, an hour waiting to get a turn. Yeah.
Right. So I can see a couple of pains in that. One is like that the demand from customers is low. Like if you're the last taxi in a line at the airport, you may not get a ride and then you just spent all that time there, so time wasted. Or that you get assigned like routes that like aren't the big like money makers. Like if you were a taxi driver in Chicago and you got assigned Michigan Avenue, you might get people with more money that'll give you bigger tips and stuff like that, but then you get another part of town that nobody tips and nobody's giving you any kind of extra money, or you get kind of a sour attitude from people, whereas tourists might be a little bit nicer to you. I don't know. So yeah, bad route might be a pain as well. So what about games? What's something that the driver would require or expect out of something he or she is using to make money?
Could it be that they want like a constant revenue sort of?
Yep. So they want to actually get paid on a, a consistent basis for work.
Guys, I don't know what you think about this one. The safety for the driver.
Yep, safety for sure.
Yeah, so let me give you this example. In South Africa, if you Google taxi wars, and you have drivers that butcher each other, fighting for routes, fighting for clients, and they will use gun violence. I mean, Johannesburg, as you all know, is termed the world's murder capital in terms of knifing and then guns and all. Maybe second to Chicago, to Illinois, Chicago. But can you imagine now with Uber, that entire risk has been eliminated because you are a private citizen. You do not have any identifier on your car, like a number plate that shows that you are a taxi. You're just running it anonymously. And that is greater safety for drivers as compared to, and you can Google taxi wars, Johannesburg, South Africa. It's crazy.
Right. Yep. Definitely. So they expect safety. They expect to not get robbed or injured or killed in some way by just driving around. All right. So what's the product and service? It's kind of the same, I would say here. So they have not only the whole service is employing drivers, well, contracting, I guess is a better term, to drive around and pick up riders. And then they have the app that's on the other side, not the rider app, but a different app where they can, put in their available hours, say they're available. So the platform as well. So what does that do to relieve the pains that we listed over on the right side for the drivers? Let's start with that they can't schedule their own hours with, existing other side hustles. So what does Uber allow them to do?
Drive when and how much they want to.
Yep. So they're able to, say the time period they want to drive in, and like kind of, I'm pretty sure this is how it works. They can kind of check in on the phone and say, I'm available for rides, and then it starts tracking where they are. So you can kind of do it whenever, I think. So just so we have time to get into your actual value props, we'll try to get through this in the next couple of minutes. So then looking at the pain that we described of you can't find a job or a side hustle that is, something that you want to do. This obviously, it provides a way for kind of anybody. I'm not sure what the qualifications to be an Uber driver are. I think you have to have a car that's a certain model year and above, and it has to be clean or something. But almost anybody can do it. So if they're having a hard time finding another kind of side job or even a full-time job, this might be a good option for them. And then there's kind of a built-in rider base for Uber. Uber's really popular. It has brand recognition. So anybody being a tourist in a big city or something, they pretty much know they can use Uber to get around. I can't remember the last time I used an actual taxi to go somewhere anytime. I've like only used Uber or Lyft. So you know when you're an Uber driver that there's already that built-in audience, there's already that customer demand that is going to be waiting for a ride from you. And then you get to kind of choose your own route. So if it's a bad route, you're not going to go sit in that part of town if you don't want to be given rides in that area. So you get to choose your own route or place that you're going to be driving around. So anybody have any ideas on the gain creators? I would say one related to safety is that Uber has kind of standards in place that protect its drivers. And like Dave said, there's a little sticker in it that says, you know, I'm an Uber driver, but it's not like the big thing on top of, you know, a taxi indicating, hey, I might have a lot of money in here if you want to come take it.
They have a review system, so they know they're picking up people that are likely not going to harm them.
Right. Yep. Yeah, if somebody has 1 star, you're probably just going to cancel that ride and not pick them up. And then what about the constant revenue? How does it help create that gain?
One thing is they don't have to worry about getting paid because someone has to pay before they pick them up, kind of.
Right.
So, yeah.
All right. So let's get to actually doing your examples. Let me clear this. So Lola's going to send a value prop canvas PDF in the files. If you're viewing on your phone or some sort of device where you can't download that and add in your own there, just go ahead and just write down, you know, list out your customer jobs and the pains and the gains, and then we'll get through, you know, there's only a few people in this workshop, so we should get through everybody's who's working on it tonight. So there, Lola just sent it, or like I said, you can just write it down. We'll spend the next 10 minutes or so. I would make one for each of your customer segments, but we'll probably only have time to go through one of them tonight. But as homework, if you want to get feedback on your value prop canvas, feel free to email the canvas for all of your customer segments that you have for your solution. So go ahead and start working on that. We're not going to break out into rooms or anything. Just start working on it kind of on your own. We'll be hanging out here. Yell out or type any questions into the chat and start working on it. Let me know if you have any problems. And then we'll go through as many as we can before 7 o'clock when we wrap up. Right. Is anybody ready and want to start going? You can share your screen if you actually typed it in. If not, I can leave this up and you can talk through it.
I don't mind going.
Right. Did you want to share your screen? I can stop sharing if you want to.
Yeah, I'll share.
Cool. All right, go ahead.
All right, can you guys see it?
Yep.
Okay. So I guess just to bring everyone up to speed, the idea is a marketplace to sell parking. And the customer segment I'm focusing on is on the seller side. And on the seller side, I feel like I have different customer segments. So one is people who just have properties nearby that currently don't do this. And then there's sellers who already do this. And then lastly, there's businesses that are nearby and could do this. So this is to focus on sellers who don't do this right now, but are nearby an event venue and could rent out a parking spot on their property. And so their goal is to rent out this parking space. So the pains, the way I see it is, they can't think of an easy way where it requires very little effort from them to make some side revenue. And the other way I thought about it is if they wanted to do this, it can be a lot of effort because, you know, they either have to post a sign on their front lawn, and then when someone drops by, they have to come check in on them. And then to even find customers and how they're going to accept payments, just the logistics of that, and also trusting, you know, whoever's parking on their property isn't going to, you know, throw beer cans or something and just make a huge mess.
Mm-hmm.
And so the primary gain that these people receive is they just own the land or rent the land there. All they have to do is post a spot and they can make some revenue. And so the product is selling parking through an app. So the pain relievers is this could provide them steady, easy revenue. The app would help them find the customers, accept the payments, and they could check reviews and see if the history of the buyer is such that they won't cause any issues for them. And they don't really have to be around unless something goes wrong. So very little is required of them. And other game creators, I guess I kind of talked about it in other places, just the review system and accepting, you know, various forms of payments besides just cash, I guess, if they were doing it in person.
What about, especially since this customer segment is the one that's like new sellers, like people who don't usually, you know, sell their parking spaces. What about like being able to show trustworthiness, like on their part of like the spot that you're parking in, like, you know, be able to show pictures of what it looks like or give details about, you know, the area or if it's somebody's house or something like that, you know, like, you know, the trustworthiness also of the seller, like they can prove kind of like an Airbnb host, you know, it's a safe place to stay because they also have reviews on like them as a host in the place.
Exactly. That's a very good point. Yeah. So I guess that would be another game creator, right? To show just that they can be trusted to
right. So one thought on the customer job, and I'd be interested to hear what Arnold thinks about this too, is like, is the job that they're trying to do like renting out the space, or is the job more just like they want to make money and then they have like a parking space they could sell? Like,
I think for this one, he's got it right. Rent out the parking
okay.
space. Because otherwise it would be kind of looking for other opportunities to
Mm.
earn money, which is more TaskRabbit.
Right. Okay.
This is good. And I agree. I think you need to do it. You'll have a slightly different one for each of your different customer segments, both on the seller side, which you've already identified, as well as one for your the people parking the cars. I don't know what you call those.
Just the buyers.
The buyers, yeah.
Yeah, the buyers.
Did you have time to make different canvases, or did you only have time to put this one
I just
together?
put this one together, yeah.
Okay.
The hardest one is the people who sell parking already, because
Yeah, like
I would-
existing.
yeah, because I would want a commission, and so for them to decide it's worth them paying that commission is hard to figure out.
I also think the businesses would have a whole other host of problems like liability and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's the two segments that are, the businesses will probably be easier to interview, I think, because I can just go to the physical places and ask.
Right.
The sellers are the ones it's hard to get a hold of.
Yep. All right, I think we got time to go through at least one more. the like one other person that's left.
Kunal.
Kunal. This is the benefit to sticking around for the whole workshop, though, is you get detailed feedback and insights from us.
Okay. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Wonderful. Yeah. So this is what I was working on. So a little preface again. So the product we're working on is sort of like a homework software, a homework come exam prep software. So like the whole job idea is like people need to complete their homework and they have to practice material for before like the exams and stuff. But like the main issues like they're having is like there's like they just aimlessly just keep solving homework again and again, and they don't have time to like look back where they made mistakes. Okay, I need to improve this concept, or okay, I messed up this part. It just like there's so much homework nowadays that people just keep doing one after the other, and especially with online, it's getting pretty rough. Um, Gains, I was thinking about more of looking out for more questions, a few other things, and then also like from this question, do I understand how to apply this certain concept in like science and maths, and further. I also forgot to talk about the customer segment. So for customer segment right now, this was mostly for the college students. I did a little more research on like how this homework softwares like get into the university ecosystem, and it's uh, I'll have to make one for the professors and also the university, because getting into the university ecosystem, I'll have to like uh, pitch to the dean of students to like show like how our product would be better and improve the student grades. Uh, for pain relievers, I was thinking more on like how like addressing all these issues. Like one of the most important ones I feel like is that it's like lack of motivation affects like it just makes all of these other ones worse. So to fix that, I was thinking about having like a streamlined communication between like professors and SI sessions. So say for example, like I'm messing up on this particular topic, then I could get a notification saying like, okay, in tomorrow's or day after's SI session, we're having this topic taught, you might want to come. And then just generally improving design and interfacing, because it's like having a lot of students on one particular software makes it pretty laggy. And for game creators, because they want like more questions and they want to be able to apply their concepts, I was thinking of having like moderate questions through like with the help of the SI session people who take the SI sessions. So like the questions are like more focused on like a particular concept and applications of that, and having like topic wise distribution of like, okay, I'm good at this question, I'm good at these sort of questions, and bad at this sort of concept. And so then uh, college students will have like more freedom on like what parts do they want to work on first.
Okay, just so I'm understanding kind of
Mm-hmm.
what it is. So is it something similar to like a Wiley Labs type thing where
Yeah.
you're actually doing your homework within the thing itself? Okay.
Yeah.
And so when you would be filling out your answers, like if you got something wrong, like after you click submit, it would come up with some kind of notification of like, looks like you need more help in this area. There's a seminar coming up
Yeah.
on this.
So
Okay.
like it's more about like throughout their experience while solving homework rather than like after particular questions, because it's very hard to judge. A lot of people would have to keep guessing questions for now. So towards the end, like each question would be, the idea is like each question is sort of like marked on which concept there are, and then towards the end we can like show a statistic like, okay, you're good at these concepts and you're bad at these concepts, and you might want to take a look at that.
I
So
actually think that part is the very powerful part, because I think most college students cannot make the connection between the homework problem they're doing and which concept they're learning or not learning. And most of the time, I'll say, or at least back in the day, it might be different now, but it was pretty much well, you hear a bunch of practice problems
Mhm.
and you kind of basically do them all, but it's hard to know which ones, like which concepts you aren't quite getting. And if
Mhm.
the software can tell you exactly that, it's like, okay, you don't need to do any more, the multiplication ones, you got
Yeah.
it. You're having trouble with division, so let's just focus all your time on division versus they'll say, okay, do all the odd problems, do all the even problems, and you're not actually effectively utilizing your time studying.
And I also feel like slowly like as exams creep up, people are like, oh no, I have to study for all the product, like for all the topics, and then they just like, I don't know where to start. They just pick a random page and they just go
Yeah.
out.
You don't know where to look in the textbook. Like, yeah. So I would say a pain reliever of this is like knowing, like it allows you, maybe it's a game creator. No, allows you to know where to focus your time.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, I like that one.
Out of curiosity, would professors be another segment for you? Like, do you need them
Yeah.
to sign up as a gotcha?
So it's actually like looking into the thing. It's more like it's the dean of students that like dictates like what sort of software is there in like all your classes. So it's mostly like I'll have to pitch to them. Obviously, we'll need to have like the professors to have a good experience too. So they want to interact like within the system and they have like better communication with the students.
So
But
your
that would
college
be,
students are real, oh, sorry, go ahead.
okay, let me start first. So that's true if you want university-wide implementation.
Hmm. Hmm.
But I think that you can do grassroots. So for example, if you had a faculty who was teaching, math 100
Hmm.
or chemistry 100 that's got 5 or 2,000 students,
Yeah.
you could get them to implement it
Hmm.
just in that class.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then you can do that with, if you can do that with a dozen faculty
Classes. Hmm.
members, then you can start to collect the data that say, hey, look, the students who actually are on the platform,
Hmm.
are point 0.2, do point 0.2 better in their grades than those without. And then you bring that to the dean of students, and then they're like, oh, we should totally do this across the university.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. But so for now, what our like entry strategy has been like trying to get into like student-run classes first because like they're pretty much like so we can like test out like our product first. Like are the questions are good? Are is everything like pretty up to speed and lean? And then from there we're like looking forward like going to higher end classes.
So what I was going to say was just that, so the students in this case are really your users,
Hmm.
but your
Yeah.
customers are the faculty or maybe
Hmm.
the university at some point.
Yeah.
Well, that's the question. Who pays?
So it's the students who play, but it's like they don't have a choice to pay, sort of almost.
Or yeah, because like
Hmm.
Wiley, like if I
Yeah.
have that for a class, I have to pay like
Hmm.
$50 or whatever for that
Yeah.
course
Hmm.
pack or something. Okay, so they would be your,
Yep.
but it's really up to the like faculty, I guess, to
Implemented
use
in the
it. Yeah,
class.
so you
Yeah.
have to
Hmm.
get them to do it before the
Hmm.
students are able to
Hmm.
pay for it or forced to pay for it, I guess. All right, so we have one more person here on the phone. I don't know if there's anything that you wanted to share. If not, I think we got through everybody that stuck around. All right, so let me go back to my. Okay. All right, so just a couple more things. So the homework is to read the Talking to Humans if you haven't done that yet. Lola will put the PDF in the chat again if you don't have it. And then since we have such a big break between now and our next workshop, which is January 20th, the goal is to conduct as many customer interviews as you can. So just to let you know, we kind of look back at what the finalists from last year did as far as customer interviews. So our second place winner, Narava, they conducted 134 customer interviews and then 32 patient interviews because they had a medical device. So that was, almost 200 interviews that they did in total. And then the first place winner, Glimpse, that we heard from a couple of weeks ago, they interviewed 110 hosts and then 30 brands. So all of our finalists last year, and I would say, we don't have the data specifically for before that, but I would estimate that they've all done somewhere between 150 or 200 customer interviews prior to the semifinal round, like at least that many. So if you think about that, the more interviews that you conduct, the more defined your business model, your value prop, and everything's going to be, and therefore you're more likely to win the competition. So to kind of keep on track to have at least 100 interviews before semifinals in April, you need to have at least 50 done by January to be on track for that. So if you haven't done any at all, I would highly recommend getting started and scheduling as many as you can. If you've already done 50, don't feel like, oh, I only have to do 50 more. Like, keep doing as many customer interviews as you can. You can go back to the same people multiple times if you want to get, more feedback from them, but definitely use the time over break. I know there's holidays and everything, but also, you have a little bit more free time that you can spend interviewing as many customers as possible. And then, like I said, our next workshop is not until January 20th. So we'll do a little bit of a review of our value proposition, and then do a little bit of market research, show you some resources that you have at Purdue in the library to find these market reports that would normally cost you, thousands of dollars, but because you're a Purdue student, you have access to them while you're here. So we'll show you how to access those. And then we'll also be doing a check-in on your customer interviews. So that's why you want to make sure you do as many customer interviews as you can. So tonight we started at the beginning doing, a check-in about your interview progress, what you've learned, some insights. So kind of just be prepared that when we come back in January to share all of the learning that you have from all of the customer interviews that you've done. So that's all we got tonight. Is there any questions before we go?
Hey, what was that market research tool you were talking about?
Yes, so we'll go over it more like in that workshop. We actually had market research scheduled for later, but I think the sooner you know what you have access to, the better. So there's something called the Parish Library that's a part of Cranert, but any student at Purdue can use it. It's not just for Cranert students. And there's a lot of market research data available. There's several different databases that Purdue has access to. And there's a couple of people that work in the library that are experts kind of in the entrepreneurial area, and they can kind of talk you through how to use those databases. So it's a little overwhelming if you just go to the page and start clicking around. I can actually email out a link to it when I send out the recording of this workshop, just so you can start clicking around over break and you don't have to wait till January if you want to try to figure it out on your own. But there's a couple people that we work with there, Heather and Annette. Not sure which one of them will come talk, but they'll be able to go through like your specific market, for your product that you're working on. So you tell them what you're working on and they can tell you what database would be best for you to look for the information, and kind of do it for you a little bit.
Gotcha.
Arnold, can you kind of give a summary of what kind of information is in the market reports that are available?
So market reports will go in depth into forecasts for market size, They'll go into, kind of moods of where they think the market's going. Is it growing? What are the risks? What are the changes that are coming? They may include, very specific numbers on, the big players or the competitors in the market. They'll have a competitive landscape of, who's in this sector. It's actually, for me, it's, just to geek out. It's like, in my view, it's like, depending on what you're doing, it's like really interesting reading. So if you're trying to do something in mobile apps, it'll have all kinds of great information. And the really great part is that these are all free for Purdue students, and typically a single market research report would cost between $3,000 and $5,000 if you needed to buy it off directly from them. And again, as a student, you can download it for free, and you have access to tons of them.
All right. Any other questions before we let you go tonight? Well, thanks for joining us and sticking around for the whole time. Appreciate it. And we'll see you back in January. It seems so long from now.